sophisticated. Thank you. Good morning. Again, what a wonderful opportunity to exchange ideas and projects. I would like to continue this keynote by explaining some of our work and being a little bit older. I think it's also interesting today to share with the student population the sources of work. And for me, I was, there's no doubt, educated as an agricultural engineer. And that's what I am. I'm from an engineer family. Engineering landscape is the base, and that is for me so systemic and comfortable. That's in my pocket. I can deal with that. Midnight. That we can add layers to that, which are more related to exchanging the culture, which is another component of landscape. We have an office which is really organized as a studio. People work together in multidisciplinary teams, young and old, international. We forget the borders, the edges of the disciplines, and we have a problem. Let's say I have a problem as a manager. I'm fighting computers, and we do as much as possible in printing, sketching, and be sure that we exchange and we become a team. And people feel the comfortability of a computer. They dive into it. They are into the details, but no longer mix all the other opportunities. That strategy in the office is making the office a really hotspot of ideas and creativity. As I said, most of our work as landscape office is related to large-scale or small-scale projects dealing with land making, water, ecology, new park infrastructure, which is, I wouldn't call this hardcore, but this is very much where we have education for. And for example, this is a new dunescape offshore, an office excursion. But another thing is that from the early days on in our office, we tried fundamentally to fool around, to play, to experiment, to fantasize. And I would call that making poems. So poems have no reason to exist. They are for nothing. They might have layers and new visions, and it might be nonsense. So one of the poems brought me here for the first time. I was here ages ago. I was still a baby, and we sketched a botanical garden on a strip of land which was only 3 meters in this city, in Guangzhou, to jump the botanical garden over a river. Of course, this is 100% fantasy, and to make the bridge even bending a little bit. I think this is a very interesting sketch and research, very poetic. And finally, we made a model in which the components of the bridge were made of simple materials, and the frame was made of gold. And the model, I think, is still here in Guangzhou. Okay, these kind of experiments, often for competitions or installations, we make 1 or 2 per year still, is also exercising your skills and making a deeper thinking and layers of hesitation and euphoria. And so, for example, this is a project we won to build an expo in Yverdon in Switzerland, which is built on on a place which needed to be evacuated 2 years later. So everything was built temporary from timber and cladding, cheap materials. And this is the project we asked Dilliske Video to make the cloud. So that was our idea, and they executed it. We also do these kind of experiments. This is Puerto Valletta in Mexico, to experiment with artists and artisan ideas, or just try to make cutting-edge gardens with no budget. For example, this was made in Charleston in America, a garden made from Spanish moss, which just grows in the trees. We collected that and made a garden with that in the swamps, with anything we found. This was a no-budget project. So also in the early days, very poetic project is the exercise which was built to make a plaza in a cultural plaza, event plaza in Rotterdam, which is a harbor town. And the idea was to make the plaza in timber, rubber, steel, and to make hydraulic cranes 35-meter high, which are dancing in a very slow ballet, in a choreography to mimic the qualities of the dockland of Rotterdam. And another example is a fantasy of a garden of 10,000 bridges. So this is a labyrinthic garden in Xi'an, China, with 10,000 bridges. Or a bridge which is melting. This is also, these things are very relevant. Now we are older, we are, let's say, gaining professional experience. We are in an interesting network of, let's say, commercial clients. And for example, this is one of the projects for a tech industry campus in California, which is about opening, in which we make a design which is hardly using budget, because that was the aim, where today, top of the bill working facilities for IT industry are here, 4 pavilions with no architecture. So this is a pavilion with 3 stories. It is a small campus, but it is a prototype of can we make a 21st century spaces with low carbon footprint, with low energy, with low on architecture, and it's very Californian, very laid back and optimistic, and ready for pop-up and all that kind of activity. Here we see some of the courtyard is designed, composed in with the perimeter of buildings, as you see here. But portions are open, and they have fences and walls to be both, you know, embraced, but also closed. The material is raw steel. It's no detail, almost no detail. And I was very impressed when I saw the project coming. And all the furniture is recycled trees from the site. And so the site is mainly built with grass and gravel. That's it. And the only path structure has this width. It's a mosaic layout. So I think it is an interesting exercise of, now I have no slides anymore. Let me see what's happening. Okay. This is an interesting exercise of a young project, which is about to be there and to be opened. where I feel the pride of being older, grown up, um, more on the let's say the clear, to have a better focus on what to deliver. Another project which is on its way is a project in Texas, Houston, where a leading group of people brought the idea of delivering botanical garden for Houston, a city with very, let's say, it's a university town, oil business, medicals, pharmaceuticals. And they also thought, now we have a cultural center, we also need a botanical garden. They bought an old golf course, and we transformed the golf course in a botanical garden with massive plantations. Most of the planting you see in this small maquette in green is done with native species of the region, which are part of a collection, but they are also there to shelter very expensive and precious collections with world gardens, which are rectilinear, and of course this is a composition based on the existing, I have problems with the slideshow. On the existing system of river and topography. If there's a real problem, we might run it from my own computer. So this project is a few years of working on level of master plan with a group of philanthropists. And the subject in Houston for bringing a design for us is also shade. The microclimate needs it. You can't be outside during the day for long. You cannot enjoy a garden by walking there. You need to be in shade most of the time. And also introducing program and activity to make the garden popular. So it could be funded in a certain way. I don't go in detail, but of course the main thing is this is the global garden. It's one of the collection gardens with a collection of plants. This is the design, and this is the outcome of that garden. Is part of a system of shaders, the canopy, alcoves, which are made from stone and ultra-thin concrete. For what we had to design molds, and that is very, that had become a very elegant project. The wall, which is supporting a portion of the alcove, is full of pockets from where plants start to grow. None of the materials is smooth. Everything is designed with a rough texture to be completely overgrown in a few years. It will be like a ruin in the jungle. That effect will come. There are shade pavilions, information points in the garden, and it has an interesting welcome composition of alcoves and buildings with giant fences, which were done by local craftsmen. We worked together with these people and delivered a remarkable quality of ornamentation and fences. From stone, we could also conceive fountains. And a portion of the new, let's say, the starting infrastructure is an edible garden or culinary garden, a garden with more or less the kitchens of Houston, which are very international, and where chefs make, let's say, every week meals, and people buy a ticket. So the center of this garden is a series of fountains and shade trees, and a table of stone. I wish I could show it, yeah. The walls, for that, there is a very old technique of ceramic tiles. We were allowed, let's say, client team and the budget allowed us to make 120 different tiles, and we were looking for the right colors, and finally we came on jade. The back of these walls is with trellises, with fruit trees, and the walls are actually fountains. So they are fantastic in acoustic, in also temperature, tactile, sensitive. And in the heart of this, of course, the garden around is not planted here. In the heart of it is a table, which is at normal daytime exposition of pots and plants. But at special moments, it can be a wedding or a dinner with a cooling water line in the middle to cool down wine and beer, dripping into the garden and being part of it. Another example of this, let's say, this desire for ornamentation and cultural layers is a fascinating project we did for Duke, Duke University. There is a Vignoli museum building, the National Museum. Thank you. Amazing improvisation. Okay, for Duke, we made actually a plaza in bluestone, which is a local stone with a seating. Well, what is it? Is it the table? Is it the stage? Is it the bench? Nobody knows. And that is actually a cultural a plaza, a garden, a courtyard to be programmed for cultural things. I'm fascinated to share you also the project we did in New York for 10 years, the building of the Governor's Island Park, which is a vision of Mayor Bloomberg and his team to change a military island, a military base, is actually similar to Yongsan Park, into a public park. So a Navy base, one of the most unique spots in the world, in the Hudson, changed into a park. And for that park, which is very relevant, it was too low above the sea level. We collect debris to lift the park, to lift the island, to make the park sustainable. And it let's say, survived Sandy, which was a very relevant detail. A hurricane hit New York. The park is a destination. You have to take a ferry and to arrive. And so we introduced fonts, letters, to make it a character, to make it an identity, and also a welcome. The transformation of the island, we more or less use topography to create better views over the harbor and the skyline, and also to make a park which is diverse and programmable with the ecological planting strategy. The army base was dynamited and all of the debris recycled in giant hills, which are so cool because they give amazing view corridors. Let's say the plan also consists in a free bicycle program of 2,000 bicycles, which are there. And the construction started in 2-3 phases, finished within 10 years after we started design. Portion of the island is a threshold from a plaza to the open views over the harbor, which is called the Hammock Grove, which is a plantation. It's overplanted with thousands and thousands of trees and hammocks. And from where meandering paths bring you to every nice spot. You see the beautiful burrows around the Hudson East River. The harbor, fantastic opportunity. We recycled from the debris of seawall and buildings. We recycled all the stone into a giant scramble where people become children. Because it has no definition and people use it for all kind of reason. It's unprogrammed, not preoccupied. From the top, which is softscape, you have eye contact with the Statue of Liberty and amazing opportunities to descend via slides. Another project I'm very proud of is a project built about 10 years ago together with Frank Gehry in Miami Beach, the New World Symphony, a client team who brought a new school for music education, and the parking lot of that area, which was before a commercial place, became a park where, and the idea was that people who cannot afford tickets to go to the music, they can sit outside, and we project the music and the show on the wall of Frank Gehry. So let's say the old idea of a band shell in a park was transformed in a high-tech beamer with an astonishing sound system where people enjoy the concert without tickets on bean bags. This park is a grove of vicia trees and has amazing shaders. And the concept of the park now is extended over the convention center, which is next door, and so it's successful. We did deliver. It was a 22-year project. The park for the London Eye on Thames in London, which is called Jubilee Gardens, which is actually a very beautiful place, because from here you see the Parliament houses, and people know this site also because of the Royal Festival Hall, who's programming terrific music, so now and then. Another project is the recycling of a railroad yard into high-tech contemporary working space, where traffic was more or less banned to the periphery, and this working city is entirely pedestrianized around a double lake, where all the stormwater, the lake is for collecting all stormwater and keeping the water on site. There's a plaza, and as you see, the landscape is delivered with a very fine materialization and a lot of craftsmanship, amazing quality of water, and people in all the business units, the pavilions designed by Rogers, they hear a waterfall, and the reason is that we here you see the decking details. We went to the west coast of Great Britain and Wales, where we found a quarry, collect stones and built on the quarry a waterfall and shipped it by train to the site. And so water of the higher lake percolates into a lower basin, and this makes a sort of noise so let's say so dominant that it is actually the quality of the site, the waterfall. An amazing project which will still be, is still under construction, will be soon opened. It's one of the largest museums in the world. It's the Grand Egypt Museum, which was promoted by United Nations because of in Egypt the archaeologists, they discover more than 300,000 artifacts per year, and so for research and for collection and exposure, display, a new large museum complex is needed. This is done with leadership of Egyptian authorities and scientists, and it's an amazing project, which was started as a competition won by the Irish team, Hannigan Pang, who made a concept for a museum which is sunken in the plateau of Giza. As you might understand, the pyramids were built on a plateau next to the floodplain of the Nile. Of course, the stones were shipped in those days over the water and then raised into the three pyramids. And so the museum is more or less hiding itself in the edge, in the cliff of the Giza plateau. And the facade of the museum, you see that here, is about 800 meters long. You cannot fantasize, it is gigantic. And so actually the museum had become landscape. The museum design is very simple. There's 3 or 4 galleries, which are all designed in a corner grid of a triangle. And from every gallery, some of them 80 meters high, you see the pyramids. And it's almost a generic design, world-class design by Hannigan Pang. I helped them after competition to make a master plan and to introduce the landscaping. And for that, of course, we made many trips to Egypt to research the situation. And here, although Cairo is expanding, you see the interesting phenomena that the floodplain of the Nile is extraordinary green, and one step in the desert and you are really in the desert. So it's a very sharp line. So we thought a museum should more or less educate this geomorphological and landscape condition by introducing a forecourt which is green, and behind the wall, the museum is part of the desert plateau. That's the master plan. I cannot go into all the details with the research center and all the tourist activities, hotels, and the circuits of cars and buses. There's about 40 million visitors per year to the pyramids, so this is a real logistic thing. But we finally made and delivered a design in which the foreground became green, having a plaza which is penetrating the museum wall, creating a courtyard inside to be hosting, that was our idea, the sculpture, the statue of Ramses II, who used to be in front of the central station in Cairo. And so recently the statue is now raised, and he's standing in the middle of this courtyard. So I try to go back. So here we see the wedge entering the museum, and there under the roof, this is so the welcome. You go really under the facade, and you arrive in the courtyard of the museum. So that was the idea of the interface between garden and museum, from where, if you rotate 90 degrees, you have the giant galleries facing each of the galleries, the pyramids. I think it's worth to go there. This is a phenomenal achievement, and this is an experience you will never forget in your life. These galleries will be filled with thousands and thousands of artifacts of any scale. Of course, this is a naked museum, but soon there will be the collection. Also, King Tut will be there. And we now see the starting of the planting of the green foreground. I don't have more recent photos. We are, for a long period, happy to work with the Toronto Waterfront Corporation to deliver a world-class waterfront, which is based on the concept of democracy, shared space, in which, with the vision of Mayor Miller, we could get rid of 50% of the car traffic, and instead of that, public transit, bike and pedestrian space. We opened with the installation of stolen bikes. We made an Arc de Triomphe, an arch to allow people to bike for 10 days on the site. And that was the start of the, let's say, the political debate to get rid of traffic and less traffic, more shared space. And this is what it is today, a marvelous shared space concept. It is about 3 kilometers and 3 blocks deep. And the investment of this waterfront started real estate development unprecedented in Canada with condominium towers. The former harbors, which are called slips, they all have a biotope investment, and above is underwater. And above these biotopes, we made wave decks for allowing people to have access to the water. This entire project is built with timber, with Canadian granite, and with large tall trees to make a Canadian waterfront. So here we see the wave decks, the necessary ornamental details in the bridges. Another project where, let's say, botany, engineering, ornamentation, the pleasure, the excitement of landscape came alive is a campus in Shanghai for Novartis, a pharmaceutical research campus for 10,000 people, which is built over a laboratory. So there's a very large laboratory system. On top there are pavilions for research, and over the laboratory there is a fruit garden, which is made mostly with the use of brick, the local gray silver brick from Shanghai region. Very small and elegant, and beautifully and quality of details. All the fire routes are done in grass over a sort of system to allow heavy vehicles. So you don't see you don't see the fire routes. You think it is a Wimbledon, but it is actually the opposite. And we also introduced pavilions for the scientists who share moments of lunch, coffees. That's what the garden is made for, that there's a crossover of the researchers. So we made these pavilions ourselves, and the very center is a restaurant with 3 chefs designed by Kengo Kuma. Okay. Henri, this is a project you know. It is a competition in Shanghai, the waterfront. We lost the project, he won the project. But they were so charmed by us. Of course, we were a little bit disappointed, but they gave us a small portion in the east, which is called the Eastbound Waterfront. And I had the pleasure, we very much liked the water condition, also because of the cultural background of waterfronts, seawall problems. Old dock walls to be demolished, and a new seawall to be built higher. That was actually the project. We could convince the client team to not demolish the dock walls, to keep them, and to work with let's say, the archaeology of the site, with the potential low and high weight, and deliver a project with scientists and a lot of political engagement to transform these infrastructures of old docks, cranes, into a public waterfront. We made a seawall out of clay, so 80% of it is soft seawall, and where that was not possible, we had to, so here we see styrofoam on portions where the old quays were collapsing and could not have any weight. But most of the places we built directly on the existing infrastructure with granite. And some places a new seawall had to be raised, cladded with granite, and or poured newly. And where they need to be poured newly, we introduced a sort of alcove seating and used the very rough concrete printing techniques of bamboo. So here we see the outcome of the portion where a new seawall was raised. We did not like the idea of a linear waterfront only, so we made the waterfront stitch into the city on several points where people have access to the water and where ornamental quality was delivered and playful nature for people. We designed signage to make the biking engaged instead of traffic, and made it in a way that that people also now use the waterfront for a quick connection. If you take a bike in Shanghai, it's not possible, but if you follow, let's say, proportionally the waterfront, it is possible. And of course, for this, again, you need a lot of shade. So we make so now and then shader where people have a possibility to stop. A project I'm very proud of, and our office collaborated for more than 5 years with a local team in Madrid, is the delivery of the 10 kilometers waterfront on both sides in downtown Madrid. It's a project by the mayor of Madrid. And his vision was to change all the highway system on the water into tunnels and to build boulevards and parks over the tunnels. So this is after the execution of the work, and literally all traffic is underground. It was a very expensive project, and we were able to, so this is a regional scale, to link the ecosystem of the valleys south of Madrid with the mountains north of Madrid via the river, and wildlife is now spotted in this corridor, which is very relevant. But more relevant is that it is a place where even on Monday, 10,000 of people use new public spaces and parks. There's festival spaces, there's a cultural village. It is an unbelievable contribution of the park system in Madrid, and this was done by almost unlimited funds. So here we see Avenida Portugal. That is the main road up, not along the river, perpendicular, which is a tunnel now, and a boulevard above. And the most relevant thing is the Salón de Pinos. Is a boulevard of dancing pines, which is continuous and wide bike track, and links all the portions of the park in front of the palace, in the cultural district, Toledo Bridge. We see all kind of activity, fountains, ecology, shade places, playgrounds, many bridges, more than a dozen bridges. We were able to design all of these. And 2 of the bridges next to the cultural district, we worked on the idea to make a bridge where people from local community were photographed as real characters, and they became the angels on the ceiling of the bridge made in ceramic tiles. And illuminated by the daylight, which is reflecting on the river water. this is a series, a masterpiece. So you see the bridge has a waist, it has a slight arch. It is a place, you meet people. The bridge becomes an object of desire. And I think it is a very poetic project. We are, for a very long time, this is about 25 years, trying to deliver a park in Utrecht, which is a city in the Netherlands. This is 300 hectares, and it is actually a park because of a city extension over cultural landscape, agricultural landscape, where we try to make the cultural landscape, the farmland, in a sort of archaeology visible in the future park. We explored an old riverbed from the Roman time and the Viking time, which is on site with beautiful soils adjacent. And we introduced a track, 12 kilometers, around the park to connect every neighborhood with the park. And the project started with a massive planting. So this is about 200,000, 300,000 trees planting in ecological succession, from young to old swamps and marshes. This project is half built by communities who work in the weekends and participate. Special botanical projects are within. So in theory, the park is part of a system of pathways which links the downtown cathedral with the medieval landscape 20, 30 kilometer abroad. And we designed for that a highway, mimicked a highway like Route 66 quality, to make the bike in a sort of glorious, euphoric detailing, with curbstones and a 7-meter wide track. And this became, and it had a name. It was named after one of the inventors of the environmental movement in the Netherlands. So it became a character. Very soft and interesting detailing. It is really pulling people from their neighborhoods into the park and using it for health, for going to school, for going to shops and exchange. Part of this concept is that we delivered pergola, which is at the end of the day about 3 kilometers. And this pergola is like 6-meter high structures to be grown over completely. So this was built in a modular system, and it's about to be invisible at the moment. So today, this is how it looks. Portions, of course, are much wilder and rougher. And in the pergola, there's also pockets for all type of biotopes. Special gardens are situated, about 50 bridges designed with ornamental quality, and a beautiful wooden bridge system. 20 bridges are copied from Nihonbashi Bridge from Ito, Tokyo. Pollination garden by Piet Oudhoff. The last project I show is a project which was built in Russia, in St. Petersburg, a few years ago, after 10 years of competitions with architects to restore the Navy Island, which was built by Peter the Great when he started Petersburg. So we see a triangular Navy yard with a dock in the center, and the circle is a prison. And this was the place to build vessels, frégate. That was the function of this place. This project is in, the buildings are in decay, and one of the legs, one of the wings, doesn't exist anymore. And for a long time, there were architect designs to restore this one wing in contemporary way, but could not be, let's say, politically handled, because Petersburg is Patrimonium, UNESCO World Heritage, won't allow that. So now the project starts with the renovation of the old buildings which still exist. They are in brick, and they have they have very bad foundations, many cracks, and so there's a lot of mercy to develop these buildings, and they are not restored, so they keep a sort of roughness to make a sort of how you say, compromise between a ruin and a contemporary facility. And the missing wing, the missing portion, we decided to introduce a boulevard of trees in the same scale, and we used these two paintings for the argument in the monument committees with all the professors. So here we see at the left Peter the Great instructing people to build a ship, and on the right we see Peter the Great instructing people to plant a tree. And so we took these as metaphors to deliver tree planting and the building of a ship. The ship, of course, to become a playground. So here is the ship, one-to-one, authentic design. But the decks are missing. They are in nets, and they are a playground. The ship is one of the most popular things in Petersburg. Every child wants to play here. And parents cannot enter it because we make the access to the boat very low and small. So kids can enter, but parents don't fit. And that's also an interesting idea. So the trees planted and in full capacity now make an amazing boulevard from where a cultural program for the park all year round is organized by not by public, by private sector. So they organize festivals, events, skating, there's numerous pavilions, and a lot of art shows. And very often the evening program is with music and fireworks. A very popular portion of the garden is an edible garden, where we more or less mimicked the Russian dacha, the cottage, where people have, families have edible products. And for Russian people, this is very romantic and heartbreaking. It links them to their childhood and grandmas. And so this is a very popular thing. And then the boat is there as well. Thank you for your attention. And I hope I give a little bit of, let's say, view in what we delivered the last 10 years. Thank you very much.